All right, all right. Let me see if I can add a couple of guests to the live stream. I get to join. Oh. All right. Hey, welcome, guys. We're about to do a live debate over over Jesus. Just invited a couple of people to join in. Welcome, welcome. Thank you guys for being here. Let's see. I'm looking at ways to invite other people to the chat. Bear with me, it's my first time doing this. Now, Will and Moses, you guys might have to request to join, and then I can accept it. There's should be an icon, Will, at the bottom of the screen. Will is unable to join. Accept. Yeah. All right. Will, I think you might be accept. There we go. Welcome, Will.
Can you? Well, thank you.
A little audio issue. I didn't catch the last thing you said.
You add another request. Can you do that request
Yeah,
again?
yeah. I think Moses is watching the chat live.
Yeah, but I think he's left now. Is he? No, he is watching.
Sure, I can send him another invite. Moses.
Thanks.
Yeah, I just invited our friend Moses to the chat. That's an ironically biblical name too.
Yeah,
So is my real name, as a matter of fact, too. Yeah, I don't see that Moses requested to join. When you requested, was there a button you pressed? Maybe you can help Moses out.
yeah. There was a button I pressed that said request to join.
All right. Well, Moses, if you're watching, go ahead and try to find that request to join button, because I don't think I can invite other people to watch, but once they're here, they have to request to join. I believe that's how it works. This is also my first time going live, so it's exciting.
Yeah, it's also my first time going live.
Excellent.
But if we can't invite Moses, do you think I could watch the debate between you and Moses?
That's possible. But since you're here now, I'd love to get you and I debating, and then because I don't know if I'll be able to add Moses if he's. It says you can add up to 3 other people in the same live chat, so we should be able to get him in here. While we're waiting, I did see a comment that said, "Love your content. What do you think about Hinduism?" The only things I really know about Hinduism is that it promotes reincarnation and a class system. Yeah, I think I got Moses in here.
Hey, bro.
Welcome, Moses.
Hey, brother. How
there
are you?
Are. Good.
Yeah,
thanks for joining in.
Me.
Yeah, you guys can call me Jed, by the way. That's my real name.
Jed, nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you guys. Welcome. So,
it's a pleasure. Where are you from?
Phoenix.
Oh, nice. That America?
Yeah, America.
Oh, okay. That's good. I'm from Australia.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
They have flying foxes in Africa, don't they? You guys have a bunch of crazy animals like flying foxes, right? Everything down there tries to kill you, from what I've heard.
Yeah, we do. I mean, Yeah, we have flying foxes. That's true.
Nice. Just the regular ones here.
Okay. No flying foxes there?
Do you think you could catch 300 foxes? Do you think you could catch all 300?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Kangaroos are pretty popular here.
Oh yeah, and they box too. They kickbox. They'll punch you in the face if you're not careful.
They do. They can.
I think they're only dangerous if you go after them.
Yeah, yeah. Give them their space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Only thing you really need to watch out for here is javelinas.
Yeah. True. I can't see your face.
Oh really?
Yeah. Can you? Yeah. I can.
How about now?
I can see. I can see William and myself.
Oh, I have my camera turned on. I can see my face.
I can see everyone. I can see everyone.
Okay. That's fine.
Yeah, hopefully the audience can see my face. I have it on here. I have the camera on, so. Yeah, if you guys are
okay.
If I record this.
What's that?
Oh yeah, I'm ready.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, let's do it.
Is it okay? Is it okay if I record?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think the live broadcast, at least from what I understand, automatically gets saved to my archives. So after this is over, I'm going to do my best to upload it to YouTube, uncut. So as long as that's okay with you guys.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
Awesome. So the topic of the debate, Will, you said is going to be John 14:6, which is, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Do you want to expound on what that means to you at all?
Yeah, if I can share my testimony, if that's all right.
Say that again. Sorry, I didn't quite catch it.
Can I share my testimony of how I came to know Jesus?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So I actually come from a Catholic family, but I never really knew Jesus in a personal level. And I went through life saying to myself, like, I would only believe in Jesus if I had a sign, which is, I guess, not really believing through faith. And I actually had a vision of Jesus. So a vision is different to a dream. A vision is you're actually awake and you're seeing. It's like you're in a dream, but you're awake. And I saw Jesus on the crucifix, and I saw this, and then the scene changed, and I saw this beautiful tree with multicolored fruits, and that's just how I've encountered Jesus spiritually, and how that's like one of the reasons, well, the biggest reason why I believe in Jesus. But on my way to seeing this was I actually started following the commandments, and I wanted to see if there was anything more, and I wanted to see if Jesus was the real deal and Jesus is king, you know. So yeah, that's how I had an encounter with Jesus, spiritual encounter.
Okay. So how can someone like me tell the difference between you actually seeing Jesus in a vision or Jesus coming to you in a vision versus your brain making a hallucination on its own?
I'd just say the timing was just it couldn't be a coincidence that I decided to start following the commandments, and then Jesus appeared to me in a vision. I don't think that was a hallucination. And what was really interesting is I actually have a friend, and when I shared the story with him, he also saw the vision. So I don't think two people are hallucinating. I don't know how he saw the vision. I don't know if it was just through God, but he also saw it. And he said to me that he thinks he knows what heaven looks like.
Interesting. So you'll have to sympathize with me, since from my perspective, there's no way to verify that any of that actually happened. So if this firsthand experience that you have, I have no way of knowing if it actually happened, because there's other people from other religions that have similar experiences that also can't be verified. And when you saw Jesus, did he, you said he was next to a tree with fruit. Was this like, and you were awake, were you outside? Was this a real tree with real fruit? Did you like shake Jesus?
Actually, I was in my room, but it was like I was almost like in some sort of, the way I could describe it was like if I were to put on like maybe Apple's 3D glasses, where I can't see my body, I can't see anything, everything is darkness, and I just see the crucifix with Jesus on it, and then the scene changed and there was a bright white light, and then just this beautiful tree with multicolored fruits, but I couldn't like run around or like pick the fruit or do anything like that. It was very short. I think it was only a few seconds.
Okay. That kind of evidence for me, I mean, I hope you understand, just can't be compelling, because I have no way to tell whether that actually happened. You know, it's a firsthand experience of yours. I don't doubt that you had the experience, and I really believe that you're telling me honestly what it is that you saw. But the explanation that I would come up with is that this was, if you're alone in your room, this might be some sort of either hallucination, or maybe you were dozing off. Maybe this was a daydream or a regular dream. So, you know, I have no reason to believe that this actually happened.
No, I was wide awake. I was quite shocked about it, because it just, you know, it was an appearance which I didn't expect. I was actually in a very dark place, and sure, I was lost, and I was thinking of like wanting. I was just like in a really dark place, and I didn't really want to like live anymore. And that's just my testimony. I know it's hard to say, okay, I believe in Jesus now because I saw Jesus.
Sure.
Yeah. But I'd say from my advice is, if you want to know Jesus is true for yourself, I'd say follow the commandments, read the Bible, and pray.
Okay. Well, and those are some things that I could do, and some of them I have done. So reading the Bible is one thing that I've done a whole lot more since I became an atheist, and reading the Bible has made me question beliefs even more and question the validity of the Bible, because there's a whole lot of stuff in there that I find very morally reprehensible, including a lot of the commandments in the Bible. Like there's some commandments involving, well, here's one example of one I find particularly egregious, where if a woman is engaged to be married and it's discovered that she is not a virgin, then the town is supposed to stone her to death. So do you think that only virgin women should be allowed to be married, or do you think that that's one of the commandments we can ignore and it's okay? So how do we know, I guess my real question is, how do you know which commandments we actually need to follow and which ones that are okay to ignore? Because I guarantee there's at least 100 commandments in the Bible that either you don't know or don't follow whatsoever.
That's a good question.
Good question. Can I actually go back to what William said earlier?
Yeah, go ahead.
And I'll get back to your question. Is that all right?
Sure.
Yeah, it's just I wanted to comment on that, but I remained quiet. Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I wanted to actually talk about how, you know, William mentioned that he had a dream. He's sharing a testimony saying that he had a dream. But the issue is there's no way you said that you could confirm that his dream was true. There's no way. It's his experience. You haven't experienced it. And he said that his other friend experienced the exact same thing. And you said that there's no way you can confirm that. And it's true that you can not confirm that. You cannot confirm other people's experience because it's only happened to them. But this is what you can actually confirm in the Bible. You can confirm the prophecies of the Bible. Bible is not just a book written by a man. if you actually open the Bible, you'll find prophecies in the Bible. And there are over like about 70 prophecies in the Bible that has been fulfilled. Jesus has talked about future events. Jesus has talked about future things that he couldn't possibly know. I'll give you an example.
Yeah, please. On my end, it looks like Moses, you cut out briefly, but I'm eager to hear. I'm eager to hear about these prophecies as soon as you're back. Yeah, I don't know if anyone else can still hear Moses, but on my end, it looks like I can't hear him anymore.
Yeah. Hello.
Oh yeah.
Hello.
You're back. Okay.
Yes. So what I'm saying here is Bible is not just a book written by man. We know that Bible is the word of God because of the prophecies.
Okay.
Prophecies are written things about the future before it even takes place. And the Bible has many prophecies that has actually come to pass. It has prophecies of historians that have come to pass. It has prophecies of Alexander the Great before Alexander the Great even existed. And one of the prophecies that moved me was Matthew 20. Matthew and Matthew 24. Hello? Matthew 24 verse 20, Jesus actually mentioned that do not take flight. Do not take flight in the Sabbath, in the winter or the Sabbath. And he mentioned the word flight. We know that at the time of Jesus, the time Jesus lived, there was no such thing as aeroplanes. Aeroplanes did not exist at the time of Jesus. And in Matthew 20, Jesus mentioned, do not take flight on the winter or Sabbath. He mentioned the word flight, journey, flight. So that's what I mean. We know that at the time of the apostles and the time of Jesus, there was no such thing as aeroplanes. Yes, they had chariots. They didn't have aeroplanes, and Jesus said the word flight. This is a prophecy in Matthew. Jesus is actually talking about a future event. He's saying, don't take flight, don't fly on a Sabbath, or don't fly on a winter. Not just this. This is just one of the prophecies. There are many prophecies in the Bible, countless prophecies that has actually been fulfilled. Alexander the Great is written in the Bible, in the Old Testament.
Alexander the Great, and I'm eager to. I'm looking up the Matthew 24:20 verse about taking flight, because that's interesting. Pray that your flight will not take place in winter or on the Sabbath. And you're saying that Jesus was actually talking about airplanes, and that we should never use airplanes in the winter or the Sabbath. So right off the bat, I feel like I haven't looked into this yet, but my speculation would be that the word flight, as you're interpreting it, is a mistranslation, where he's not actually talking about airplanes. He might be talking about like running away from some place, or going back to your house or something like that, based on the context. But if I am to accept that he's actually talking about airplanes, we do fly airplanes in the winter and on the weekend. Every single weekend, every single winter, there's just as many airplanes going on every single day, with no more likelihood of distress than in the summer or on weekdays. So how does that actually, it seems like Jesus was wrong, even if he did accurately predict airplane.
Yes. The context of that verse, Jesus is actually talking about a disaster that will take place, a chaos that's going to take place on the earth, because he's talking about the end times. And in the end times, the context of that verse is disasters. It's called the Great Tribulation. And he's telling people that it is actually dangerous to fly on those days because of the disasters and the chaos. And if you read actually further in that same context, he says, woe to the mothers giving birth at that time, for there will be great tribulation. So there will be even danger for mothers that are actually in hospital giving birth in the same context. So in that context, he's talking about the great tribulation, the great trouble that is coming on the earth. And he mentioned, don't take a flight. And if you keep reading further, he says that woe to the woman giving birth. So the question is, what did Jesus mean by flight when he said the word flight?
Was he actually talking about people in airplanes thousands of years later?
Yeah. Because he's talking about people in airplane. Jesus can use a lot of different words. He can use the word don't run. He can use the word don't walk. He can use a lot of words. He used the word specifically flight. And if you actually look at even the Greek translation, the Greek also says the same thing, fly, to fly. That's the Greek translation. So my question here is, if there was no airplane at Jesus' time and airplanes did not exist, how on earth is Jesus saying fly? What does he mean by flight? What did the apostle use to fly? Did they ever fly in the air? Or did they ever have some sort of machine that they fly? In the Bible, if you read, there's nothing like that. There is chariots.
So
there is
I'm looking at some other translations of that verse, and the TLV translation says, pray that your escape will not happen in winter or on Shabbat, which I think is the Jewish word for Sabbath. So I feel like flight might actually be a word that's being translated that means escape. People are running away from something. And Jesus is not actually talking about people in airplanes. He's saying, pray that your escape. Here's another translation, NCV, that says, pray that it will not be winter or Sabbath day when these things happen and you have to run away.
That's true.
Another one that says when you flee. So flight, flee, run away.
That's true.
Based on those, it seems like he's not actually talking about a jet airplane, but that people are just running away from something.
That's true. In that verse, the reason why they are flying is because they're escaping certain places. They're trying to get away from certain areas because of disasters. That's true. I'm not conflicting with that. That is true. So when it says, you know, they are escaping, it's not an error. It's not contradicting. Or it says that they are getting away, it's not contradicting this verse. But when you actually go to the Greek, because this New Testament was written in Greek, and the Greek actually says also fly. Are you seeing it? Yes, there are translations that say escape. Yes, there are translations that say get away. But the Greek, when you study the Greek also say fly. So he's actually not just talking about escaping or getting away. He's talking about the means of escaping, how people are escaping. Are you seeing it?
Yeah,
and not just that.
I'll have to look into the Greek of that word. I think at this point, I'm satisfied believing that Jesus was not actually talking about airplanes in Matthew 24:20, but he was actually talking about escaping or fleeing based on some of the other translations. But I don't want to dwell on this one too much because we might be at a sticking point. You also mentioned that Jesus talked about Alexander the Great. Do you have a reference for that verse too?
Yeah. Do I have a verse of that? I do have a verse. You want me to go to the actual verse?
Yeah, I can look it up if you have it. But yeah, you said somewhere in the Bible it mentioned Alexander the Great. Okay. Does it mention him by name, or is it a vague sort of like a great leader type language?
Okay. It does mention it by name, but I have to do a study on that, a deeper study on that. I have to really look for that verse. It does mention it by name. I've read a long time ago in Bible school. But what I can show you is currently what I actually do have is the Bible does specifically talk about, so in the book of Daniel, I'll show you the verse, but Daniel was a prophet that lived way long time ago. And Daniel, in his dream, predicted a dream of future kingdoms that will come after him. Step by step by step. He mentioned like 5 kingdoms. And one of these kingdoms are kings that are gonna rule the entire earth. Kings that are gonna be super powerful. He mentioned the most powerfulest king after him, and Alexander was one of his kingdom was one of it. It was called Grecia, and I can actually show you scriptures of that. Okay.
Yeah, I found the verse. Yeah, in Daniel 2, it says, "Finally, there will be a 4th kingdom, strong as iron, for iron breaks and smashes everything," which isn't actually true. Iron does not break and smash everything, and as iron breaks things to pieces, it will crush and break all the others. And so you're saying the 4th kingdom is Alexander the Great, and that this is a prediction that he's going to be very powerful.
Yeah. Not just that, if you keep reading further, he explains actually the kingdoms, the meaning of the kingdom, if you read further. And
so the thing about prophecy is that when they're really vague like this, there's a lot of different ways you could interpret it. Maybe if it wasn't Alexander the Great, there would be some other empire that would have been really big, and then you'd be pointing to that one and saying, hey, look, this one fulfills the prophecy. And what about the 3rd kingdom, which is bronze? And it says a 3rd kingdom, one of bronze, will rule over the whole earth. And we've never had a one world government ever. So we've never had a bronze kingdom, one world government. So then this 3rd kingdom seems to be a complete failed prophecy. So how do you why are you ignoring this failed prophecy and then clinging to the 4th kingdom? And because Alexander the Great certainly didn't have to overthrow a one world government when he came into power.
These are actually highlighting not just kingdoms, not just kingdoms. These are highlighting very powerful kingdoms that the world and history can actually identify. And a lot of historians have been shocked of this prophecy, because a lot of historians know that Daniel is a very old prophecy, and Daniel was talking about kingdoms after him. And historically, all those kingdoms have actually come to pass, just like the Bible referred to it. One after another, after the other, have actually come to pass. Like people can measure, the Roman Empire and Alexander's time. They can know, wow, Alexander's time was really here. And the Roman Empire actually came after that. People can verify that.
Sure. But, I mean, there's never been, it says that a 3rd kingdom, one of bronze, will rule over the whole earth. But we've never had one kingdom rule over the whole earth. So that seems to be a failed prophecy.
How do you know? How do you know we've never had that? How do you know?
Well, I've taken a couple of history courses, and not once did they ever mention a one world government that's taken over the whole earth. My understanding with North America is that it used to be run by Native Americans in a bunch of different tribes, and then Westerners came over a couple of 100 years ago. But around the time frame of Alexander the Great, or just maybe a couple dozen years before that, who was ruling the whole earth? I mean, that's the claim. Do you have evidence that there was a one world government? Because it's not up to me to prove that there wasn't, even though that, I mean, we could look at all the rulers during that time frame and look that there were more than one. So
there was governments that have actually ruled the whole earth. There have been. For example, I'll give you an example. The Roman Empire was really powerful. The Roman Empire controlled the Jews, and the Roman Empire controlled the tribal people. The Roman Empire controlled the savages. The Roman Empire had a lot of power. You know that. History teaches us that.
Yeah. So
history teaches us that they didn't just have control over Rome, but nation abroad.
Yeah,
you haven't learned that in history.
I'm gonna move my camera. I found an image about the Roman Empire here, and this is the range. Let me see. This is the range of the Roman Empire, and it looks as though it's mostly Southern Europe, a little bit of Africa, the Middle East, but it's primarily just here around the Mediterranean Sea. But I don't see North America on the map. If this was a one-world government, the entire world should be red. And it's a little bit more red here, a little bit more red. Now it turned purple, but yeah, not once. I mean, the map never zooms out and shows the entire world. So, no, the Roman Empire was certainly not a one-world government.
So does that show the map of the nations that you mentioned? What does it show those map?
This is the map right here.
Okay.
This is, from what I understand, it's a timeline of the Roman Empire, and every couple years they expand their territory, and then they lose some territory, then they gain more territory.
Okay.
But
how do you actually view the map?
How do you view the map? Oh, I just Googled. I Googled Roman Empire map, and then that's what came up.
Okay.
But yeah, none of these maps include North America. They're all just around the Mediterranean Sea. So no, the Roman Empire, even though it was big for the time, and we've got countries now, like even the United States, Canada, Russia, like all these countries now have way more than the Roman Empire, even though it was powerful at the time.
I see. And you know that the Bible doesn't actually really mention those particular nation, and if it does actually mentions the nation, they were actually different names. Did you know that?
Right.
Russia was not called Russia.
If the Bible did mention Alexander the Great and the Roman Empire, then it would be a good prophecy. But the fact that it is vague and open to interpretation, I think, stands for the weakness of the prophecy. But if it's okay, I kind of want to wrap up prophecy talk because I find it incredibly boring, and I want to get back to Jesus, if that's okay.
Sure, we'll go to Jesus. But one thing I want to say, come on, you gotta say this is amazing of just how the Bible puts it in order. This is incredible. But we'll move on.
Well, I guess, yeah, the last thing I'll say is I'm incredibly unimpressed by the prophecies of the Bible. All these kingdoms, a third kingdom made out of bronze that rules the whole earth, that never happened. There's never been a kingdom right before Alexander the Great that ruled the whole earth. So I'm very unimpressed.
That's fine. But you do a study on the flight and come back to me.
Oh yeah, I'll look into
but we can move on to the next.
That's a good one. So getting back to Jesus, one thing that I find hard to wrap my mind around is this whole concept that Jesus says, you need to follow me or else I'm going to torture you forever. So how do you reconcile that Jesus actually loves you, but he's actually being more like an abusive husband that says, you need to do what I say, follow my orders, and give me unconditional love. Otherwise, you're going to burn in hell for all of eternity. Because when people offer that option to me, it's very off-putting.
Okay. This is what I was saying. Jesus never said that. Jesus never said that, obey me or I will torture you forever. Jesus, you'll never find that anywhere in the Bible. But this is what Jesus did say. Jesus did warn people about a danger. And Jesus did warn people that there is a hell. And Jesus did warn people that there is a punishment for all evil. Are you seeing it? So just like in the courtroom, you know, in the courtroom, there is a punishment for criminals, and there is a punishment for murderers, and there is a punishment for those who do evil. Yes. Jesus did warn people that there will be a punishment. Justice will be served. There is a place called hell. But he never said that, follow me or you'll be tortured. He didn't say it like that. But he did warn people of a danger. Yes.
So I like that you compared God's justice to our justice system. So like in our courts, we have a variety of different punishments and a severity of punishments that correspond to different crimes. So like if you murder someone, you're probably going to go to jail for like 20 to 40 years.
Mhm.
But if you jaywalk, maybe you just get a $200 fine. So there's a very gradual range of punishment where the severity matches how egregious the crime was. But
Mhm.
my understanding in God's system is that it doesn't actually matter what your crime is, because all will be forgiven if you accept Jesus Christ into your heart. So isn't that just a suspension of justice? There's no actual justice in God's system. All it is
Mhm.
if you are my friend and you love me, then I'll let go all the bad stuff you did. It doesn't matter. Versus someone like
Mhm.
me, who I've never killed anyone, but I'm going to wind up, at least according, and correct me if I'm wrong, according to you in the Bible, I will be in hell
Mhm.
because I don't even think God exists.
Mhm.
So the sin of disbelief is the worst possible crime I can commit.
Mhm. Okay, there is, there is, there is, forgiveness, and there is freedom for those who have acknowledged that they have done bad. There is forgiveness for those people. But the people who have pride and they don't think that they have done bad, there's no forgiveness for those people. So there's two things here. For those who acknowledge, yes, I've done wrong. Jesus is my savior. I cling to Jesus. They will be forgiven. Why? Because God is gracious. You seeing it? It's
Yeah.
more like that.
So what would you say to someone like me who, I freely admit I've done bad things in the past, and I acknowledge that, and I feel bad about it, and I have sought reconciliation, but I still think that God, A, doesn't exist, and B, even if he did, he's morally reprehensible. So I acknowledge I've done bad stuff, and I certainly am willing to face the consequences for what I've done, but at the same time, I think that the character God in the Bible is evil, and he doesn't actually exist.
I see. That's the issue there. Okay, I'll ask you a question.
Sure.
If you do a crime against me, do you have to say sorry to me, or do you have to say sorry to William?
I have to say sorry to you because you're the one I did the crime against.
Okay. How can you say sorry to God if you don't even believe in God? That's the problem.
You can't at all. And not only that, but I think that
that's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the
In
problem.
your example, I don't even need to apologize to William. If I hurt you, you're the one that I need to repent to, not William. And then say if I punch somebody in the face, I don't need forgiveness from God. I need forgiveness from the person whose face I punched, because that's the person I wronged. God is just up there sitting on his throne doing nothing. Even if he does exist, he wasn't involved in the interaction at all. He's just watching with his arms folded, getting mad whenever I break his arbitrary rules.
Okay. The issue is here. The sin that we commit is not just against our own brothers and sisters. According to the Bible, the sin that we commit is actually against God. So when we sin against somebody, we're not just sinning against a person, we're sinning against God. So what do we have to do? Say sorry to the person that we have committed sins against, and also say sorry to God. But the issue is this: how can you say sorry to someone that you don't even believe? You don't believe in God. You can't say sorry to God. So then God cannot forgive you.
That's right.
It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, that's 100% right. I can't apologize to God or repent because I genuinely don't think he exists. But I'm still a little problem. How does me hurting you actually hurt God? Or there's other commandments that don't even hurt you. Like, say if I wear a shirt that's a mixture of cotton and polyester, how does that hurt God in any way? And why is he so offended? Just as an example, we don't have to go into mixed fabrics if you like, but we could, for any rule that doesn't affect another person, why does God get so angry?
Okay.
And why is he
You've
offended
asked
at all?
you've asked two questions, so I'm gonna answer one and get to the other.
Sure.
Okay, the first question you asked was, how does hurting someone else got to do something with God?
Right.
Do you know why? Because God created that person you hurt, and God loves that person. When we hurt each other, it hurts God because God created us and He loves us all. When we kill someone, it doesn't just hurt the person, it hurts the family of the person. And it doesn't just hurt the family of the person, it hurts God. That's why we have to apologize to people and apologize to God, because those people are God's creation. Second question is God talking about fabric and saying, do not wear certain things, do not wear certain things, do not wear things with this. If you read that verse in context, if you read it in context, God is actually separating his own people from the pagans. So his own people, the Israelites, do not do the things the pagans do, and to not identify themselves with pagans, because pagans were idol worshippers. So he's telling them, separate yourself so that people know you're an Israelite and you're not a pagan. Do not wear these certain things that the pagan would, if you read it in context. That's what the scripture is talking about.
Sure. And just going off of that, why is it so wrong to, and maybe I should rephrase the question. How come it's okay to wear mixed fabrics now? So it's okay if we do pagan practices now, but back then it wasn't okay?
Yes, it's okay now. Back then it was not okay. The reason it was not okay back then was because the things that are happening now are not happening back then. Back then, there was a huge pagan worship going on where these pagans would actually kill their own children, kill their own babies, slaughter their own babies for worship. They would actually wound their own self, scratch themselves and say, this is how we worship God. We worship God by wounding ourselves. And they were doing it as an act of worshiping a false God. So what happens is God became irritated with that because he loves these people and he wants people to worship the true God. So what God did was he separated the Israelites. He says, hey, guys, we need to identify ourselves. Do not wear this. Do not wear that. Separate yourself with them. Don't even marry their women. Don't mix with them. Because if you mix with them, you're going to start worshiping their God. Their women will cause you to worship their God. So he's separating them. Right now, it's not the fact. It's a different time, and God is not separating certain people. He's only separating people through his word, the scriptures. So that's the answer to that.
And glad you brought up the child sacrifice, because that example often gets thrown around as an excuse for committing genocide. So in passages like Deuteronomy 20 and Numbers 31, God commands his Israelites to go and commit genocide on these other tribes. And some of the common excuses I hear are those tribes were committing child sacrifice, which is so egregious that we need to stop it by killing all the children that they were going to sacrifice. So if the problem is killing children, how does killing all the children before they can actually solve the problem? Because that's God's solution. Murder everyone, and then they can't do anything wrong anymore, which also takes away our free will. Because if God says, you know, I'm going to give you free will, but that means there's going to be some suffering in the world. But then on the same hand, he says, if you do evil stuff, then I'm going to have my boys kill you because you're not allowed to do anything that I don't like. So how do you reconcile those two?
Yes, the way to reconcile that is, that's why context is very, very important. It's important when you read the scriptures, you kind of need to know what happened before that and what happened after that. When you read just a portion of scripture, you'll get confused without knowing the whole story. What was going on is that is a judgment. God has released a judgment among certain people, and he has used that. How he has judged these people is he has used a certain army, a certain tribe next to these people to judge them for what they have done. And honestly, with you, brother, I'm going to be honest with you. God does judge. If someone tells you God doesn't judge, or the God of the Bible does not judge, the God of the Bible judges. He judges in the Old Testament, and he still judges today. But the reason God judges people is because people have done evil. There were certain people, certain tribe, who actually were slaughtering their own children, their own babies, to worship their false god. And you know what God said? God said, this is wrong. This is not just. I'm going to judge these people. This is evil. So God did use an army to judge these people, and these armies sadly wiped these people out. So yes, God, he judges, but he judges when other people, he judges to bring justice.
Well, I don't understand.
So that's what happened with certain armies wiping people out. It's God's judgment upon a certain people, upon a certain land.
I don't see how it's justice to punish people who sacrifice children by killing the children. So you have this whole tribe with women, men, children, young babies, pregnant women, and then God commands the Israelites to go and slaughter everyone, even the babies. So why couldn't they just let the babies live? And before you jump in, one excuse that I've heard to that, and maybe this is where you're going to go, is that if they were to spare any of these babies, they would grow up and then seek revenge on the Israelites. And my response to that would be, the Israelites deserve revenge because they're the ones who are the evil ones. They're the ones going around from tribe to tribe, slaughtering people and justifying their genocide by claiming that God told them to do it because they have a different religion than them.
I see. No, I would disagree with people who say that, you know, it's because these children will grow up and they'll come against. No, I disagree with that. No. I'll answer why children die. I'll answer that. Look, certain people, certain nation has done something very evil. Very, very evil. And God wants justice for the evil things that these nations have done. And God uses a certain nation beside them to judge them for the evil they have done. The issue is this. This is the issue. When God judges a nation, people who live in that nation, even innocent people, get swept because they live in that particular place. God does not have any problem with children. God does not have any problem with innocent people. God has a problem with certain nations that have practiced evil. But what happens is when the judgment of God takes place, there are children also living in that nation, and these children are being swept away. That's the problem here. The problem is not God kills children. No, no. The problem is here, a nation is being judged, and when those nations are being judged, children live in those nations, and children is being swept.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example of Israel and what's the other country? Israel and Gaza. Is it Gaza? Okay, Israel and Gaza. Look, Israel does not have a problem with Gaza or the people living in Gaza. Israel has a problem with the enemy, Hamas. They are targeting Hamas. But the issue is when they try to target Hamas, people who live in that land are swept away in that target too. Their aim is not to hit those people, but those people are swept away because they live in a nation. God is against a certain nation for doing evil, and God is bringing justice and judging them. The issue is here. Children live over there too, and children get swept. And that's the really sad thing, and that's what my heart falls for. The poor children that actually get swept.
Sure.
Are you seeing it?
Yeah, I do see it. I think it's evil. And I think God's mistake here is judging a nation. There's no reason why an entire nation needs to be judged. If there are evil people in that nation, then he should take care of those individuals, and God has the power to do that. So let's take the United States, for example. You know, we've got, 300 million people here, and some of them do really awful things. We've got people doing unspeakable acts, right? So would it be fair for God to kill my newborn niece? Would it be fair for God to kill a newborn baby and everyone else in the entire United States, including Christians, me, my parents? Everyone has to die because of the nation doing something he doesn't like. This whole idea of punishing a giant collective of people because part of that group is doing evil things is morally reprehensible. Group punishment is just evil. That's what God is all about.
Okay, I disagree with the wording. I don't say God is killing children. I say that God is judging a nation, but the issue is here, children live over there, so children are swept away. That's why I gave the image of, Israel and Gaza. Israel actually clearly told people who live in Gaza, children, women, move to the west, move to the west. We're going to hit the east. They're telling them to move to the west. We are not after the children. We're not after the babies. We're not after the women. We are after the enemy who hit us. We are after Hamas. But the issue is when they hit Hamas, it's a chaos. People end up dying. Women end up dying. Children end up dying. They are swept in that place because they live in the same location.
Sure.
So I wouldn't say God kills children. God doesn't kill children. God does judge people who have done evil. Can I ask you a question, brother? Do you believe in the death penalty?
No.
Do you believe in the death penalty?
I don't think the death penalty should be enacted. And while I do think there probably are people that deserve the death penalty, I think that the confidence level required to convict someone is beyond what we're even capable of having. So if there's even one innocent person that gets convicted and executed, then I think that's a horrible tragedy. So that's why I don't like the death penalty.
Okay. So
and there's
you do believe that there are certain people who have done very, very, very unimaginable evil thing and that deserve the death penalty, right? You said that you believe that. There are people who have done such.
They deserve it, but I don't think that we should carry it out.
You don't think that these people should be killed?
I believe that there are people that deserve it, but I don't think that anyone else should carry the death penalty out because we can never be confident enough that we have the right person.
Okay.
And that's been demonstrated because there's been so many innocent people executed.
Okay. So what should we do with the person who deserves it? What should we do? If nobody can carry it out, what should we do with that person? They deserve it, so what should we do?
Well, guess we should put him in prison, and then well, hang on. Before that, we should have a trial and make sure that we are extremely confident that we have the right person convicted, and then once we do, we can put him in prison. And it's not a great system, and maybe there should be more rehabilitation if that's even possible for the individual. But yeah, it's not a perfect system, and I'm certainly not at a point where I have a better system in mind. But
I see. But you see, you're contradicting yourself because you said that they deserve the death penalty, but we shouldn't carry it out. That's a contradiction. We have to find a way to carry it out if they deserve it. Because if we put them in prison and they deserve it, it's not just because they deserve it. So you are contradicting yourself. Which one is it? Which one is it?
So
should
my position is that there are people who deserve it, but we can never be sure enough that we know who the right people that deserve it are.
So should we carry it out then?
No, we should not carry it out.
So it means that it's unjust because they deserve it, but we can't carry it out. We're leaving them in a state of injustice. Are you seeing it?
Yeah, I see it, but I think that the bigger
Yeah.
injustice is executing innocent people, and that's the thing I want to avoid.
Okay. That's 100%. Okay, 100%. So in both ways, it's going to be injustice
Yeah.
because those people might be innocent and they may not be innocent. We don't know, but we'll not carry it out. It means we're leaving them in a state of injustice. What I'm saying is, if somebody gets proven to have done something very, 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 very evil, shall we execute them?
I mean, my answer is the same. I don't think so. I don't believe in the death penalty.
Okay,
Because
so you
how can we can't be sure enough. There's no way that we can possibly be sure enough that it's the right person.
okay, so no matter what people does, no matter what a person does, no matter how evil the thing is, we shouldn't kill them, right?
That's my position. Yeah, the state should not kill them.
Okay, so you don't just have a problem with God, you have a problem with the United States of America, and you have a problem with Indonesia, and you have a problem with many nations, not just God, because there are many nations, if you commit a certain offense, they'll kill you. Even in Australia here, your problem is not just with God, your problem is with the
I suppose
nation.
that's true. But the issue with God is that he's not only executing guilty people, he's executing people that haven't done anything wrong. For example, little babies. So God says this whole nation is comprised of, let's say it's 95% of the people here are evil, which I can't even imagine a whole nation with that many evil people in it. But just for the sake, let's say there's 95% evil people. Why do those 5% innocent people, 5% of the population might be children, why do they deserve to be killed?
Okay, they don't deserve it. I said it a number of times. They don't deserve it.
So in that case, God is committing an act of injustice because he's having people killed that don't deserve to be killed. So God is unjust.
Okay, so this is what I know. They don't deserve it. The little children don't deserve it. When a judgment takes place, they're swept with that judgment. That's a very sad thing. And the answer to this question, honestly, I don't know. I don't know why it has to be like that. I don't know.
Well, it certainly doesn't have to be like that.
It doesn't have to be like that.
God is all-powerful and omniscient, so surely he could think of a better way to punish evil people. I could think of a better solution, which would be, instead of commanding the Israelites to go and slaughter everything that breathes, just have God wipe all the evil people out of existence. Just make them disappear. And then what you're left with is a whole city of the 5% that's left of good people, and then they can form a new city of good people. So God doesn't need to kill everyone. God could just kill only the wicked people and leave the babies alive.
Okay. The end. There are like.
Oh, sorry. Let's let Will jump in here. Will, do you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, but what about the people that have a change of heart and come back to God? You know that they're surrounded by an evil nation, and they could turn back to God and confess their sins and repent.
Was that a question for me or Moses?
Both of you.
You're saying, what about the people that repent from their evil actions?
Yeah, because you guys are talking about a lot of innocent people dying in a mass area because of war and what's going on. But what about the people that are in that location that have decided to repent and turn to God?
Yeah, that's another.
I think God does allow people to have time to repent and change their ways.
Unless you're a baby living in Canaan, because then, before you even reach the age of reason, God is going to send the Israelites to jam a sword into your neck and kill you. So the babies don't even get a chance to learn how to talk, let alone commit any acts of evil that need repentance before God has his henchmen slaughter them to death.
I see.
So
Yeah. You know, the question I cannot answer is, why does that have to happen this way? What I can answer is that God has no problems with children. God has no problem with kids. And God has no problem with innocent people. The reason I know that is because the Bible clearly tells us that He's good. The Bible clearly tells us that He's just. So from that, I know that He has no problem with any innocent people. What I do know is God does judge. And at times when He judges a nation, there are innocent people living in that nation and they are swept away. Kind of similar to Israel and Gaza. Israel has no problem with people living in Gaza. Israel has a problem with Hamas. But the issue is people living in Gaza, they live in the same place as Hamas. And when Israel hits them, innocent people suffer.
So here's a question for you. Why can't Israel just make Hamas vanish off the face of the earth without any war? Just make them all disappear. Because they're not God, obviously. But God could do that. So God could take all these really evil people and just make them disappear without needing to go in and use humans to commit war acts. God doesn't need to rely on humans to go to war. He could just make these evil people disappear instantly.
I see.
You, if I could also respond to something else you said, you said that the Bible says God is just and good. But of course, the Bible would say that if it's inspired by God, because He's going to claim that He's good and just. But I think a better way to determine if He's good and just is to look at His actions, because actions speak louder than words. So when we see God punishing a whole nation for the crimes of a few individuals, or having His followers go and stab a spear through a baby's eyeball, those acts, I think, are morally reprehensible. So we can judge God based on His actions, not just His claims.
No, He's judging a nation for what a nation does. He doesn't judge what a little people, He doesn't judge a nation for what a little people do. He's judging a nation for what a whole nation does. But the problem is there are little bits of innocent people in that nation. It's amazing because you have a problem with God judging a nation.
Right.
But you don't have a problem with Indonesians executing drug dealers. And you don't have a problem with America giving death penalty. And you don't have a problem with Australia's death penalty. So if you have a problem with God, you have to have a problem with America. You have to have a problem with Australia. You have to have a problem with Indonesia because they carry out death penalty and they call that death penalty justice.
Well, I do have a problem.
It's not just an issue with God. It's an issue with.
Exactly. I already said I do have an issue with all those countries because I disagree with the death penalty.
I see. So you're smarter than Australia, you're smarter than America, you're smarter than Indonesia, and you're smarter than God. You know more than all of them.
Well, I wouldn't say that I'm smarter than Indonesia because that's not a person. I can't judge my intelligence versus the intelligence of a whole country. It doesn't work like that. What I can say is that I disagree with this particular country's laws. But the country is comprised of millions of different individuals. Some of them, maybe I am smarter than, but there's definitely people in all those countries that are smarter than me. So I would never claim that I'm smarter than a country, but I can claim that I disagree with a country enacting the death penalty because I don't think we can ever be confident enough that we have the right person, even though there are people that probably do deserve to be executed. Even if one innocent person is killed, I think that's a bigger injustice than letting a horrible criminal live in prison instead. So I would rather see more criminals alive than more innocent people being executed.
I see.
But I would say that
You are,
I do know better than God, so I would make that claim, if he's real, which he's not.
okay. So you actually do agree with it. You are saying that the reason you are, I would say you agree with it is because you said in your words that you believe that there are certain people who deserve it.
Yes.
But it's kind of contradicting because you have a problem with carrying it on. And I think you have a problem with carrying it on because you're like, we don't know, maybe it's not them. What if it was proven that this person committed this crime? We have it on video. We have the evidence. Shall we execute this person?
I suppose, yeah. If the hypothetical is we have absolute certainty to the high, well, which that doesn't actually exist, but we have the highest confidence level that we possibly could that we have the right person convicted, then maybe I would say that we should go ahead and do it. But the issue is I don't think we can ever have that much certainty. But God certainly does have that kind of certainty. So in theory, he could be justified in killing an evil person.
Okay. So say we have the evidence on video that the person committed this crime, and we have a confirmation that it's the person, and we kill the person. The executioner kills the person. Is the executioner evil for killing the person?
That's a good question.
There we go.
I don't know.
Is the executioner evil for killing the person who has committed a crime?
I don't know. Maybe maybe he is, maybe he's not. I don't know.
Okay. You don't
what I
know
can
for
say
this
is that
scenario.
What I can say is that I would
do
never
know for God.
Sorry, what were you going to say?
You don't know for this scenario, but you do know for God. You say that I don't know if it's wrong for the executioner, but when God judges a nation and people die, it's wrong for God.
Well, the reason it's wrong for God isn't because he's killing people that deserve it. It's because he's killing people that don't deserve it. Because, as you say, these children that live in the nation are swept away. They're caught in the crossfire, so to speak. Yeah. But God has the power to avoid that if he wanted to. He's deliberately choosing a method to enact destruction on a nation. He's using war methods. He's using ancient Israelites to run in with spears and stab pregnant women in the belly instead of just snapping his fingers and making all the evil people disappear painlessly and instantly. And it doesn't need to be painless. He could send them to hell and then torture them on their own. So, I mean, he can enact any kind of justice that he wants to come up with. But the issue is God is killing people that don't deserve it. That's where my issue lies. Like the babies and the...
Okay.
I'm gonna say something, Moses.
Yeah, what's up, Will?
If God just killed all those people that were evil, don't you think he would be taking away their free will?
Sorry? If
God just killed all the evil people, don't you think he would be taking away their free will?
I don't think so, because I don't think that's a free will situation. I think it's more of a certain people doing evil and then being judged for the evil they have done. So I don't think it's a free will situation. Yeah.
Well, here's a question. Why does God...
For example...
Or I was going to ask
that
why...
is not a free will situation. People just die.
Why did God insist on killing the Canaanites or having the Israelites kill the Canaanites, but he lets... arguably just as evil of people live now? How come we're responsible for enacting the death penalty on criminals? Why doesn't God take care of it for us? Like, why does God let someone who does unspeakable things to children run around continuing to do it? Why doesn't God come in and enact this justice himself? Why do we have to do anything? Or my real question is, why does God let people do evil things?
Okay. I'll answer that question. God is not letting people do that. God is not letting. I'll tell you how. God is the one who put government in its place to do their work. If somebody says that God is angry with a criminal being sentenced and being put to jail, that's incorrect. God is not upset about that. God put a government to govern the nation and to bring justice, because justice comes from Him. Justice originates from Him. So He's the one who put the government in place. He's the one who put the courtroom in place to carry His justice. Okay, if the person does not get judged by a government or by a courtroom and gets away with the evil he has done, his last judge will be God when He faces them at the day of judgment. That's why the Bible tells us that there is a time of judgment. A time of judgment is for people who have committed such evil things and they didn't go to court and they didn't go to prison. They live their life after doing evil. They die. They may get away from the courtroom. They may get away from the government. But in the day of judgment, they will be judged by God. So at the end of it, God has a judgment for those people. He will carry it out. He's going to do His work. That's the whole purpose of Judgment Day. That's the whole purpose of standing before Him. So that's my answer to that.
There's a lot there to unpack. One thing I want to get to is, are you claiming that every single government is enacted by God or appointed by God?
Okay. It is, but it doesn't mean that they are always honest. And it doesn't mean that they always do things the right way. But if they do things, what God has done is, God has given people a role. And He wants people to do those roles properly and fairly. Okay. If He's given them a role and they don't do those roles fairly, He's going to deal with them. That's how it works. Makes sense?
Well, yeah, the issue I have with that system of God just letting us take care of criminals on our own is that, let's say you have a criminal who kills somebody, and then our justice system punishes them. Or let's say they get away with it, and then God punishes them in the afterlife. The harm that they committed is still there. They still killed someone, and then as a result, there could be dozens of other people affected. So then let's say 12 other people's life is filled with suffering because of this one person. And God, taking revenge on that criminal, does not act to rectify the suffering that all those people had to endure.
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't. Just like the courtroom. Just like the judges. The judges can send a criminal to prison, but it doesn't mean it will completely heal the family. Yes, the hurt will be there, the hurt will bypass. But what will be served is justice. Justice will be served. You've done evil, you're going to get what you deserve. Maybe the person that has been hurt will still be hurt, but the person that has done the crime will be dealt with. That's why I think Judgment Day is a beautiful moment and it's a good thing. Because a good God is going to bring justice in the day of judgment. Whatever a person reaps is what they're going to sow. That's
so do you think, speaking of Judgment Day, when that day comes and God judges me and sends me to hell because I didn't believe in Him for insufficient evidence, do you think that's just? Is it just of God to torture me?
I think it's just. Do you know why? Do you know why?
I think it's unjust.
Because I think it's just. I'll tell you why it's just. The reason why I think it's just is because because the Bible tells us in the book of Romans that the wrath of God is falling upon man. Wrath means that he's angry. He's angry with man. Why does the wrath of God fall upon man? The wrath of God is upon man. The anger of God is upon man. It says, so even God has manifested himself through creation, that the things that are made testifies of him. The trees testifies of him. The birds testify of him. Living creatures testify of him. Life testify of him. The miracle of baby being born in the womb testifies of him. A woman and a man coming together and life is being born testifies of his power. Man still says he's not real. So God is already angry. Why? Because creation tells us he's real, but men are still blinded to see.
So
They're
this
saying
is the
God's not real. They are not looking at the birds of the air. They're not looking at creation. They are not looking at humanity. When you look at all these things, this is enough evidence. You don't have to see an angel fly. You don't have to have Jesus appear before you. Creation testifies of a creation.
Yeah,
That's
so this
why,
is the look at the trees argument. Just look at the trees and that's evidence for God. Or just look at the miracle of childbirth. Just look at nature and that's proof of God. But yeah, the issue is I see all those things and I believe they exist. I believe in trees, I believe in childbirth, I believe in biology, I believe in all these things. I don't see them pointing to God. It's a non sequitur. You're just saying, look how cool this thing in nature is. Look at this mountain. Look at the clouds. Look at these things. And I'm saying, I see them. They're real. We can study them and understand them. But the more we study them and the more we understand them, it doesn't point to God at all. There's no evidence within biology, within archaeology, within anything in nature, anything in nature that points to God at all. I don't see him there. So how does childbirth, for example, or anything, how does a tree point to a God? They don't testify against him or for him.
Okay. They do. I'll tell you how. I'll tell you how. In every creation in life, there is a creator. When you look at a house, you can't just say the house came by chance. You know that there is a builder. When a chef comes and puts a food on your table, you can't just say, oh, the food is here by itself. You know that a chef has made that food. When you see a car, you can't just say, oh, there is a car. You know that there is a mechanic. In every creation, there is a creator. When you see a man, how they have 2 eyes, how they have ears to hear, how they have a mouth to eat, how they have hands to touch, how they have legs to walk, how they have tears to express their sadness, how they have a brain, how it's constructed. Come on. You can't say nothing has created that. You can't say these things have just come by chance.
I can't. Well, it's not by chance just because there's no creator. So this is the watchmaker argument. You know, you're walking along the beach and you find a watch. You know the watch is designed because it's obvious. So what you're doing basically is saying, we know that some things are designed, therefore everything is designed. That's the argument. And it doesn't work because just because, you know, I know that this TV is designed, I know my phone is designed, I know my laptop is designed, and I know those things are designed because we have overwhelming evidence that they are. I can look up videos of phones being created. I can research the history of phones. We can look back in time and see that at a certain point people didn't have phones, and then we have a documented case of when they were made. What we don't have is phones having sex with each other and producing more phones on their own. There's no phones that we can just find in nature. They just don't reproduce. They don't mutate on their own. What we had with humans, and with humans with 2 eyes and a penis and everything else, we have these humans that reproduce and have offspring, and those offspring have mutations. And the more of these mutations that we get and accumulate, the more changes we can get in a population. That's how we can go from really simple organisms, like even a single cell organism, over long periods of time through evolution, get to a human being. But there's no evidence that there's a designer in that process. We know what the process is.
You don't have to call it God. Look, you don't have to call it God. You can call it whatever you want. But the fact is, something made us.
No,
we can't just
that's
come
not a
like
fact.
that. Something has made us.
That's just a claim. How do you know that that's true?
I know that's true because of how handsome you are and how handsome my brother is. That's
Well, thank you.
how I know it's true. I know that you did not come by chance because of how handsome you are and how handsome he is. That's how I know. That's how I know there's a God.
Well, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So the reason that humans find other humans attractive is because, well, for one thing, people find other people attractive who look like them, and this is all very programmed into our mind. We don't look at a giraffe and go, "Oh, that's a really handsome giraffe." We can't even tell the difference from one giraffe to the other. But giraffes look at each other and think, "Oh, that's a really handsome-looking giraffe." So this subjective opinion you have that I'm handsome doesn't mean that I have a creator. It just means that you've evolved in such a way to find other human beings physically attractive.
You're missing my point. My point is, if we just came by chance and everything was an accident and everything just appeared, we should be mixed in a very terrible way, in a squashy way. But you know how we are perfectly, our image is perfectly made. How we have two eyes, how we have two eyebrows, how we have hair to protect our head, how we have facial hair to protect our skin. Come on, there has to be something intelligent. Come on.
Well,
that's why I made a reference. How handsome you are shows that something intelligent made this.
I don't think that we're the result of an accident. We didn't just pop into existence accidentally, and evolution is not random. It's an unguided process by intelligence. There's no one saying humans need to have two eyes and hair. Hair is an evolutionary advantage because it protects the top of our head from the sun, because that's the point on our body that faces up into the air. So it makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint for us to keep hair on top of our head because it protects us. And those people that evolve less hair tend to die earlier of skin cancer because they're more exposed to the sun. And so that's why a lot of animals have hair, because it's evolutionary advantageous. And so there's a reason behind all these things. The reason we have two eyes facing forward is because we've evolved from predatory animals. And you see most predatory animals with eyes that look forward so they can see their prey. And you see prey animals with eyes on the side of their head so they can see predators coming from either direction. So all of these things have an evolutionary reason behind them. It's not random.
I like how you said they have eyes so they can see their prey. They have eyes so they can see their prey. Who gave them that idea? Who gave them that eyes so they can see their prey? Who gave them that hair so it can cover the sun? Come on. There is something intelligent that exists. There is something that can think, that can form eyes so it can see its prey. There is something intelligent that can form hair so it can cover their head. There is something intelligent out there.
What you're doing is looking at evolution backwards. You're looking at the end product and its function and saying someone had to pick the end product for the function. It's like the question, why do rabbits have white tails? Because it makes it easier for us to shoot them. But no one does. If you ask the rabbit, they probably have a different answer. So your question's with the end goal in mind. But evolution doesn't work with an end goal. Evolution works by random mutations, which are selected for by the environment. So, for example, like the hair. And in our case, our hair, we started off very hairy and then started losing hair. But you could say that we've kept hair on top of our head, not to protect us from the sun, but those of us that have more hair on our head through random mutation, we're more likely to survive because the sun is beating down on those people that are more bald and making them die earlier of skin cancer. And now, of course, you have the invention of clothing and hats, so that's not such an issue anymore. That's why you have so many people who are bald, and it's no big deal. And we live indoors most of the time anyway. But from an evolutionary standpoint...
What would you say, what is your explanation then from an evolution side, how this world was created, and how all the planets and how all the stars were created?
So cosmology has nothing to do with evolution at all. Evolution is solely concerned with the mutation of organisms once they're here. So once you have one replicating cell, that's when evolution takes over. So evolution's only concerned with biology. But your question's about cosmology. So why, you asked, why was the Earth created? Well, I don't think the Earth was created. But what you have in the cosmos is a whole bunch of galaxies with stars orbiting a center point, which is usually a black hole, and most of those stars have planets and asteroids orbiting around them. And this is just the way matter and energy behave in space. If you get enough matter and energy together, it becomes really compact. Really, really large objects have tons of gravity pulling on each other, which creates nuclear fusion, resulting in a star. And then those stars are really big and smaller accumulations of matter called planets orbit around them because of the laws of gravitation. And if you get a planet just the right distance from a star with water and the other, the right conditions, you can start to form, or if life forms, it can survive in those conditions because, it's the right distance away from the sun. And there probably are, even though we don't know about them, many other planets in our universe that have life. And then once we find those, well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But I don't know if that answers the question.
What I'm asking is, where does that all come from?
Where did the universe come from? I don't know. I don't know, and from my perspective, neither does anyone else. But what you have is a lot of religious people who claim with absolute certainty to know that the universe was created by a thinking agent, a god, who happens to look a lot like us and behave a lot like us. He gets angry, he gets jealous, he has a penis, he has all these things that are very human-like behavior, all these this range of emotions. And apologies for my dog barking.
That's all right. I actually wanted to ask you a question, and this is something that I want to know. Where do you stand? Do you believe that life has a meaning, or life does not have a meaning? In the sense, why are we here? What's our purpose?
That's a great question.
You say about that?
I think that we, as living creatures, create our own meaning. So I have purpose because I've given myself purpose. We choose what our purpose is. We choose what our own meaning is. And I think that a universe where we get to choose what we do with our life is so much more beautiful than one where there's an authority figure looking down on us, telling us, this is what you're made for. You're here to worship me. I think that just diminishes our very existence. And I think that I would much rather live in a universe without a God, where we get the opportunity to choose our own purpose and choose our own destiny and make our own choices and build our own purpose instead of having it commanded to us from an authority figure.
That means you stand in a place where you don't believe there is an ultimate purpose. You don't actually.
There's no ultimate purpose. That's right.
You don't believe life has a meaning. You believe that we are the ones who create the meaning. Life does not have a meaning.
That's right.
I see. It means there are places where you have a question mark, big question mark, and it stops there. While us who believe in God, we have an answer. For example, my brother asked you, how did these stars come about? You're talking about these particular stars. He said, how did these stars come about? You had a question. You said the word, I don't know.
That's
The
right.
difference between you and us is we have the answer. We would say we do know these stars were created by God. God who started everything from the beginning. We have an answer to it. You have a question mark. That's the biggest difference.
Yeah. Well, I would agree with one really subtle change. I absolutely say I don't know why the universe is here or how it came to be. You have a answer. You don't have the answer, and I'm not convinced that your answer is the right one. And I think it's a better option to say I don't know than to choose an answer that is wrong, which I think that the God answer is wrong. So I would much rather leave it open to discovery and say, I don't know what the answer is, let's try to find out, versus I already know what it is, because that closes the door for investigation. Because once we decide God did it, then we're not going to investigate to see how it actually happens. Just like people used to think Zeus was chucking down lightning bolts at people, now we know about electricity and how lightning works, so we filled that gap in our knowledge. The God of the gap closed, because now we have a natural explanation. And everything else is the same thing. And those gaps keep getting smaller and smaller the more information we get. And once we have that knowledge, we don't need to fill it with God anymore. And with the creation of the universe, you're saying, look at this big question mark that atheists don't have an answer to now, but you do. It's God. But I don't think that's the right answer.
That's okay. I know that you disagree with that, but let's be honest. You don't have an answer, and all the atheists in the world don't actually have an answer. They'll say the big, I don't know. They'll have a huge question mark. We have an answer. Why? Because our Bible tells us those information. It gives us those information. So what it means is the Bible, the Word of God, has a wisdom that people don't have. My brother asked you, what about the stars? You explained, we come from stars. What about the stars? How did the star come about? You had a question mark. We can tell you that, hey, there is a God. And that God is eternal. That God made everything. That makes sense. Makes sense. But if you stay in a position, I don't know, it kind of means that you are not sure, and it may mean that you are lost because you don't know. You don't know. But we do have an answer. That's the difference.
Sure. Well, I wouldn't say that just because you have an answer doesn't mean that it's wisdom. Because, you have the Bible, which gives you this information. But if the information is incorrect, then it's not wisdom. It's actually just a huge lie. And I think that's what the whole Bible is. It's just a big book of lies. It's a bunch of people who wrote things down pretending to know the origin of the universe, but they were just making it up. They have no idea how the universe started. And in the Bible, it says that God spoke the universe into existence. God used a magic incantation. He said words, basically abracadabra, and then the whole universe poofed into existence from nothing. And to me, that's a very unsatisfactory answer that doesn't actually explain anything. It's just basically saying, we don't know, God did it. He just said poof. He said the magic words, and then the universe just came into existence. That's not a real answer. It's completely unsatisfactory, and even worse, it closes the door for investigation. Because now no one's going to go out looking for the real answer, which we may find someday. Or maybe not. And if we never find out what the real answer is, I think I would always rather choose the intellectually integral option, which is I don't know what the answer is. I'm not going to pretend to have a solution unless I actually have evidence for it.
I respect that. Yeah, that's good. If you don't know it, you don't know it.
Yeah,
but the Bible claims that it knows it. That's the difference. But the Bible could be wrong, or it could be right. Yeah. But it claims that it knows it. You mentioned something that moved me, and I was fascinated with it, and I wanted to kind of address it. You actually talked about God And you talked about God as in you said God is a God that is like us. He has body like us. He has face like us. He has this like that. That's actually incorrect. That's not the biblical God. The biblical God is not like us. He's beyond us. The biblical God is a spirit. Spirit means that he doesn't actually have a body like us. He doesn't actually have a body.
Well, there's things in the Bible that contradict that. So, and the reason I say that God is like us, for one thing, in Genesis it says that man is made in God's image. So, from that, my understanding is that image is like something you see. So God looks kind of like us, or he created us to look kind of like him. And all the depictions of God that you see in artwork depict him as a humanoid figure with two eyes, a nose, a mouth, a penis, etc. In addition to that, there's parts in the Bible where God comes down to earth. I think we might have lost Moses. You still here, Will?
Yeah, I'm still there.
Well, I'll finish my thought. There's parts in the Bible where God comes down to earth and interacts with humans in a physical way. In Genesis, he comes down to the Garden of Eden and walks with Adam. He walks in the garden. Later on, God appears in the flesh to Abraham. God and two other men. It says three men, and probably two of them were angels. One was God. That's the interpretation that I understand. God and these two other people visit Abraham, and then God tells Abraham, hey, Sodom's a really terrible city. I think I'll go ahead and destroy it. And then Abraham's like, no, my brother Lot lives there, or my nephew or whatever. He lives there, and he's a nice dude. So maybe if you find like 50 righteous people, don't destroy the whole city. And God is like, okay, that sounds reasonable. And then Abraham haggles him down all the way to just 10 people. And then God's like, okay, if there's 10 people in the city, I won't kill them. So there's God appearing in the flesh, face to face, with Abraham. And then the last example I'll give is when God has a WWE style wrestling match with Jacob. And you've seen WWE where people get other people in chokeholds and flip them upside down. Imagine that, but with God and Jacob. They have a wrestling match, WWE style. I'll see if I can find the verse for that. But some other people might probably understand what I'm talking about. Genesis 32, 22 through 32. Jacob wrestles with God. So there's a couple of examples of God having a physical body, and I think what's going on here is in the Old Testament, the writers didn't really establish God in his finalized form until later on in the book. So early on, God refers to himself in as a plural. He says, "Let us go down there," as if there's more than one God. And there's also some ancient pre-Jewish religions that evolved into Judaism that state that God was...
That plural that they're
go ahead.
talking about is God the Father, God the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I mean, that's the plural.
So Jesus existed before he came to earth? He was already there?
I think he was in heaven, no?
Okay. Yeah, the Trinity to me doesn't really make any sense because it seems to violate the laws of logic, where you have God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit who are like three different entities, but they're all the same God, and they're capable of communicating with each other as if they're different people, but sometimes they're not the same person and sometimes they are. The whole thing doesn't make any sense because it violates the laws of identity, non-contradiction, and excluded middle, where you can't be something and not something at the same time. Jesus can't both be God and not God at the same time. Or maybe if my understanding is correct, Jesus and the Father are both God, but Jesus is not the Father. But if Jesus is God and the Father is God, and then Jesus should equal the Father. But if he doesn't, then either one of them's not God or neither of them are God. It doesn't make any sense because it's completely contradictory. But I think we'll probably end up wrapping things up here. Will, do you have any final thoughts?
No.
I guess the last thing I'll say on the matter, and we ended up not spending too much time actually talking about Jesus, but that was the initial topic. I think that the whole thing revolves around gaslighting, where God says
you're evil and you deserve to be tortured forever, and you send yourself to hell, you really just deserve it. I'm not actually torturing you, it's you that's hurting me because I do things that are so wicked, like not believe he exists without evidence, or eat shrimp, or wear mixed fabrics, or all these evil sins, or have gay sex, all these, which I don't do, by the way. But all these things that are evil, that God thinks are bad, he's going to punish us for, but they're actually just fine. God punishes us for things that he thinks are sins, which are actually totally moral things to do. Meanwhile, God allows things which are morally reprehensible, like slavery, rape, genocide, killing babies. God allows all these things and commands them occasionally, which are totally okay. So there's no real morality within Christianity at all. It's just following a big list of rules, and God makes you feel like you deserve to be punished if you break his rules, even though there's no justification for those rules in the first place.
That's a good point.
I have one final question for you. Could God do anything so morally reprehensible that you would lose respect for him? Because there's...
Yes, I think it's possible. It's possible. Yeah.
It is possible. Okay, good. Well, that's awesome.
You could do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because, I've heard from a lot of believers that there's nothing God could ever do to make them lose respect for him, because by definition, he's perfect. But that's just God's definition. And like we've stated before, of course, God's going to claim that he's good and just, even though he's really not. So if God, for example, commands me to murder my child, I would not do that, and I would lose all respect for God, because no good God would ever command someone to kill their own kid for no good reason. And of course, I'm referencing Abraham and Isaac, where God tested Abraham by saying, hey, you need to go sacrifice your son to me. And then, that's horrible. That's one of the worst things that God ever did. And then, of course, Christians will justify it by saying God stopped Abraham at the last possible second, so he didn't actually make him go through with it, which makes the whole thing okay. But in my head, I'm thinking that's sort of irrelevant that he did it or not, because Abraham was going to kill his own son, and he passed the test by the act of going to murder his own child. So I think the test should have been, if God tells Abraham to kill his kid, Abraham should have said, no, God, I'm not going to kill my own kid because I know that's wrong. Even if an authority figure tells me to do it, I'm not going to do an evil action. And then God would say, good job, Abraham, you passed the test, which is don't do evil things just because an authority figure tells you to do them. But instead, the Bible gives us the complete opposite interpretation, which is the right thing to do is whatever authority tells you to do, regardless of whether everything about you tells you that this action is wrong. If God tells me to kill somebody and everything about my understanding of morality tells me killing that person for no good reason would be completely evil, I should not do it just because authority figure told me to do so. And that's kind of the whole point of the Bible. God tells you to do evil actions like own slaves, kill your children, and then he punishes you if you disobey his morally reprehensible commands. But thankfully, there's no evidence that God is actually real whatsoever. He's just a bunch of, from my perspective, it's make-believe, because people make themselves believe it by telling themselves that it's true and living in an echo chamber of a church where other people confirm their beliefs all the time, but there's no actual evidence for any of it. And the best that we've heard today was the look at the trees argument and the watchmaker argument, which is basically all of nature, the look at the trees argument. All of nature points to a God, which it really just doesn't. Trees exist, but that doesn't mean God exists. And just because this TV is designed doesn't mean that everything in the whole universe is designed. It would be saying, this cat is black. I'll show you my cat here really quick. There's my cat. Ludwig is black, therefore everything is a black cat. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's just it's a non sequitur. But yeah, we've been on this for about 2 hours, so I think we'll wrap things up here. Yeah, thanks for setting this up, Will, and I hope we can do this again. Moses was a great interlocutor. You know, he was patient and kind. I think this went well, so I'll try to upload this whole thing to YouTube if I can, as long as that's okay with you guys, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. Awesome.
Right on.
Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Will. I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.